years ago, Cargill embarked on a journey to start new technology startups inside of Cargill. We wanted to develop new tech startups from the ground up. We wanted to do that with all the way from ideation to development to growing this to be large businesses within Cargill. And you know, if you take a step back and look at who Cargill is a 158-year-old company. We have about 170,000 employees around the globe. One of the largest privately held companies selling into agriculture markets, food service, retail, CPG, consumers, selling products like cooking oil, beef, chicken, turkey, chocolate, sweeteners, salt, selling animal feed into many places. And so if you read any textbook or you go to business school and read starting startups inside of a behemoth of an organization, not highly recommended. They talk about it's going to be slow. There's going to be a lot of bureaucracy, politics. You'll never be able to get things done. I've heard them all. I've heard it all. And I think what today, as we fast forward from 3 years ago in that short time, we've been able to start 13 new startups in the food and agriculture industry around the globe. We've got a team of over 200 people. And it's what really has convicted us that what we see the role technology is playing in each one of these markets is becoming more and more important every single day. And the pace of change is only going to increase at this point. And we also know that we all have to play a part in that. Hence why a large food and agriculture company decided to get into developing their own technology. So we've heard today a bit about a lot of the different things that our industry has faced in the food service and hospitality industry. We know that each of these are pressures that everybody is faced with and continue to learn about. When we've been developing these new ideas and these new concepts within inside of Cargill, we also recognize that this is going to be an important factor of the things that our company is also faced into. And that we've got to anchor ourselves as we start that development into thinking about these problem statements first. And so as we've done that, we started to break apart each one of these and think about what does that actually mean for us. We think about the P&L of a restaurant. The margins at an average restaurant are anywhere from 2 to 6%. That's pretty familiar for Cargill. We also are at about those margins across our global organization. We recognize that it's things about cost of goods is going to have an impact, your overhead, your labor. These are the big costs that you have or the levers that you have to pull to be able to find new and different ways to solve the problems that you're faced with each day. It's also about how can technology solve some of these problems and alleviate some of those pressures to bring more margin into your business, into thinking about how those cost pressures can be alleviated. We know that the customer experience and the guest experience, I think Zach did a fantastic job of describing what it means for that guest experience. In addition to that, what we see is that really the eating occasion for the customers is continually changing. I think about 10, 15 plus years ago, you went to a convenience store to maybe fill up gas, grab a snack. You went to the grocery store to pick up your food for the week for your family. You went to a restaurant to go sit down with coworkers, with friends, and eat. Today, that eating occasion has changed completely. You see grocery stores who have fast casual sit-down restaurants inside of their grocery store. You see convenience stores who are bringing further up market, having larger to-go options for eating for entire families. And you see food service who's faced with a lot of different pressures in trying to figure out delivery, new channels to market. And each one of those, they're trying to figure out how you're trying to get the eyes of the consumer, but more importantly, the consumer stomach. How can you capture that stomach and get after what they're looking for when they're looking for it? The last point is the big L word. I think this industry has talked about the L word for the last 3 years pretty consistently. And it's not just the shortage of labor, but it's really about how are we thinking about actually optimizing the labor that we have. Here's the cards I'm dealt. Here's the things I know I need to deal with. How can I actually go in and figure out how we need to optimize that? What's the role technology is playing in that today? We've heard from some other groups on how they're thinking about training their staff, how they're thinking about creating a better linkage to that guest experience based on the labor that they have. And so when we step back and we look at all of this, we started to talk about how can we take Cargill's industry expertise all the way from back to the farmers all around the world, into the supply chains that we manage today, into the operations support that we provide to many restaurants and distributors around the United States, and how do we pair that with a portfolio of technology solutions that can really bring new and differentiated solutions that matter for our customer base and for the industry. If I think about this, it's really about how do you actually deliver solutions for the industry, by the industry? And where do you create those new business models that you can actually create connections across as we do this? And so today, as I mentioned, we have over 200 people within our digital business studio around the globe trying to solve some of the biggest problems across food and agriculture each and every day. As we do that, we've really brought together talent is an important part of this. We've hired in entrepreneurs, we've hired in software engineers, user experience designers, marketing, commercial, sales, really into bringing a whole new space for Cargill that has never really existed. We're used to selling those physical products of oil, of those beef patties. We probably had some of the protein products at lunch that came from Cargill. And I think that that's a thing that Cargill is very used to, but now actually bringing in a whole new set of talent and attracting that around a purpose that truly matters has been an important part of that growth. As we looked at our talent base, we understand that today you have many people who are looking at new career opportunities. You've seen a tech sector that's been really hit hard over the last 6 to 9 months, people looking at opportunities to help create impact. And where better to do that into a company that has the opportunity to create true impact across the globe and to a thing that matters for everybody, eating. And so what is a studio model? Many people have heard about startup accelerators. They've heard about startup incubators. These are places where they can help take existing startups that are out there today, and they can actually help foster better opportunities for them, create connections, et cetera. Oftentimes, big corporates get into those types of relationships, and what we've seen happens is that it's kept at a really far arm's distance length. Don't mess with the startup. They've got their own culture, their own ideas. You don't want to disrupt them. They move fast. We'll slow them down, so we keep them at a far distance. In a studio model, you actually take that and you embed that into your organization, and you leverage all of the positives that a large organization can have. And when you flip the model on its side and you rethink the way that a startup can actually grow, leveraging the value across a large organization, our teams today have the opportunity to link into our legal teams. They got to work on a commercial contract. They need to think about IP. That's a quick phone call to somebody that's down the hall in the office. They need to think about how the products might impact the food quality or food safety. We've got some of the best food scientists to be able to step in and help us out. You have people in our finance, HR organizations that are able to support these startups. And ultimately what you're doing is you're creating an environment for these entrepreneurs to come up and focus on the most important parts of their business models, the most important parts of their ideas. And as they do that, what they see is they recognize that there's an opportunity to connect the portfolio. I think we've heard it a couple times here where, when you think about the amount of technology that's being inundated into a restaurant today, you have to start to think about how is that technology going to connect, and how does the speed of the data move at the same pace that your operations are running, and how your supply chain's working. How can you move to get information further back into the supply chain as fast as possible? In addition to that, I think that you heard me talk about we have 13 startups today in the market across the globe. And while that's been an impressive feat in less than 3 years for the team to go out and get aggressive and start to build this stuff, the number that I'm most excited about is that we've actually shut down 29. And the reason for that is because within the model, if you've got the entrepreneurs, these leaders who are starting these new ideas, And if that idea doesn't work, they don't lose their job, they don't have to go figure out the next thing, they don't have to move into mom or dad's basement. What they do is they're actually able to go to the next idea and the next idea and the next idea. And what it creates is commercial honesty. It creates an ability to actually focus on some of the true and big problem statements to go after. I remember a story. I had somebody, we started up this idea around, we felt like there was a lot of unused kitchen space, and we were like, what if we could actually rent that out? There could be a way to do this through a marketplace. There's other people doing it today. And I remember the person who was leading that, she came up to me and said, listen, Eric, I've looked at this, I've spent some time, we had some revenue coming in, and she said, I just don't think it's ever gonna be big enough. And I don't think you hired me in here to think about how we can solve small problems. I think you hired us to figure out big problems. And at the end of the day, we said, great, let's just shut it down. And that day we turned off the site, we emailed the customers existing saying thank you. This isn't something that was going to be a big enough opportunity, and we moved on to the next idea and the next idea. And as we've done that, it's allowed us to continue to focus on the growth opportunities that we see in the industry every single day, that not just you all are impacted by, but what we also are impacted by, and how can we help grow that. So I want to share a few examples of some of the things that we've developed and how that's been helping us as we continue to learn about the role that technology has been playing in the industry. The first is a product called Kitchen Blueprint. As we look at the back of the restaurant, we recognize there's a few things that are happening in today's world. The first is you know that if you think about forecasting, planning in your inventory, you often get a lot of issues with being able to manage that appropriately. We see big swings. At Cargill, we've seen the big swings of when a customer calls and says, hey, we're almost going to be out of this product. I need a rush order. Can you guys get something to us as soon as possible? We see that through our partner companies and the Cisco's and the US Foods, et cetera, who also are giving us those conversations. And so as we do that, what we have to understand is that that is an issue that we're going to be faced with every day. The second part to this is that you get if you have labor issues where you aren't able to actually go in and count, or you have people in the back of the restaurant with their clipboard, they're writing down the inventory for the day or the week, making those updates. It's an arduous process. People are spending late nights. Counting inventory is not something where a lot of people get excited about. That's the portion of the job that I came here to do. And so what we developed was a vision system that allows you to have in the back of your restaurant. It automatically counts the inventories. Think about Amazon Go, but for the back of the restaurant. You're able to watch as the system watches as product is put on the shelf, as it's taken off the shelf. It's able to start to add that to inventory, pull that out to inventory. And then you start thinking about the connections backwards into the supply chain with our relationships with the broadline distributors and with Cargill directly, is that it can actually create value in creating automated reordering points and being able to build that into the future development of how you can actually manage your inventory more appropriately. These are the types of solutions, as we think about it, of where that can create value, not just at the restaurant level, but even further back in the supply chain, and how we actually move the information at the same speed that the product needs to move. Another example that we've been working on is a big issue in our industry today around food waste. Every year, about 90 million tons of food is wasted in the US. It's a massive number. And not only is that creating big impacts on that food going to landfills for greenhouse gas emissions, but it's also creating a big impact on the cost. And so as we had discussions with some of our big partners, as an example, Cisco or other broadline distributors, we looked at their operations and we really said, how can we take what we're doing with the food you're throwing away and finding a new home for that in different ways? A lot of the food that they're needing to get rid of comes from product that's going to be coming expired. Could be product that is a damaged box where the food's actually okay, but they can't send the box to the customer. It could be a product spec that's out of spec that they just have had excess quantity of and that they have to get rid of. And what we did is we built a secondary marketplace for our customers to actually put that product on the marketplace. They can then bring it, find people around their distribution centers. So think about, we've launched this in Austin, Texas, and we're able to go after and bring in people like food banks, food shelves. It might be small independent restaurants who don't have access to the big chain, the big broadline distributors. It might be food trucks, people like this that are able to actually go after and purchase this at a discounted price and avoid the waste that goes into that Sysco or these distributors would actually throw away the food. Driving a lot of value back into their systems, and most importantly, driving value back into the communities that they often serve. We're launching this now into the Houston market. We've also have a couple locations on the East Coast. And as we do that, it's been an important part of rethinking some of the big sustainability goals that many of the big brands have today, and helping to support and actually drive true value, not just marketing value around sustainability, but showing true impact. But it's also had the ability to start to serve new segments for companies like Sysco, who maybe today aren't going after those in particular markets, and not throwing away the food and losing the profits on that. The last example I'll touch on is around our guest experience. As we looked at a lot of our customers, we understand that there's a large amount of throughput that's needed. You get long lines in maybe a stadium environment. You see the long lines that are happening in a restaurant. You might see clustered delivery drivers waiting to get their order. All of this creates congestion at the restaurant. And to Zach's point he was making earlier, if that experience or the way that the consumer experiences that is not going to be favorable, they won't come back. And so how do you find different ways to actually rethink this model? We developed a smart food locker system that allows the consumer to actually pick this up directly and decouple the ordering process from the pickup process. It integrates directly with existing companies' apps, into ordering platforms, et cetera. The operator will, once the order is fulfilled, they put the bag in the locker, they press one button on the back that immediately sends a text message to the person who placed the order that their order's ready now in locker number 4. They walk up, they text here, the driver's able to grab their food, walk out, and you've removed a lot of the issues that exist, not just from congestion, but from theft, from people grabbing the wrong orders. Because if you grab the wrong order and it gets delivered, they don't call DoorDash, they call the restaurant. And then it becomes an issue of how do you replace that and how do you set that up. And so if you can eliminate some of the waste and you can eliminate the bad experience, you're actually driving a different way to kind of rethink the model for our customers. Today we've launched this across many of the big brands like Applebee's, KFC. We have this into multiple stadiums, into independent restaurants across the US and continue to grow. And these are all examples where today, as we've been developing these new solutions, it's been an important part of how do we take the value that we understand about the industry, how do we continue to develop that through the technology lens, and bring that into our system today. You know, when we first started this, it was a big conversation within the organization of, you know, hey, are we going to try to take on and build everything in the industry? And absolutely not. We recognize there's big opportunities for us to partner with other technology companies, with other startups, and other brands that exist to help continue to create that integration and ease of use. We know that we have some expertise, like in this example around the food lockers. We went to our food scientists and called them and said, listen, quality and food safety are an important part. This isn't just a metal box. We have to think about what's that person actually going to pull out, and when they open the bag, how are they going to react when they get that? What they did with us is we did full hold time studies with our food scientists, where we actually made a bunch of food in our lab. We were able to then go put it into these lockers and test different types of insulation. So these are fully insulated, creating hold time studies that actually, we built heating units as well. And if you actually look at the difference between about a 25-minute span, there's only about a 1 degree difference on food temperature going down based on the insulation that's put in. The insulation allows it to be a cheaper, better version of this without adding all the heating components, additional need for power. This can just plug into a normal outlet. These are things as we start to continue to unfold for the industry, it's going to be an important part how we all work together as we do this. As I wrap up here, what I'm most excited about for where this goes and for what opportunity we all have, I think, as an industry is that, I said it before, I think that the pace of change is only going to continue to accelerate. We've already talked about ChatGPT a few times and leveraged it multiple, even within today's session. But the continuation of how that technology impacts our consumers and how we continue to ultimately try to get the consumer's stomach and go after the things that they're looking for are going to be an important part. I also think that as we do that, it's going to require us to all come together in certain parts and actually partner more closely, figure out these solutions, how it works with this. I famously remember IBM, hopefully nobody's with IBM in here, but I remember they came to us and they said, this was like 5 or 6 years ago, and they said, we're going to build a blockchain solution that's going to trace farm to fork all over the world. And we were like, okay, how are you going to do that? They're like, blockchain. And we're like, yes, but do you know how food supply chain works? And they said, no, you're going to tell us. And so we talked to them about how corn is purchased or cocoa around the world. If you think about for chocolate, cocoa is grown, about 70% of it is grown in about 3 countries in West Africa. And those countries are mostly smallholder farmers where they will take the cocoa pods, they will harvest the beans out of the cocoa pods, they'll put it on a truck and bring it to a local co-op. They all dump the beans on the same pile of beans that all around them they're putting their product in, and the co-op then sells it to Cargill, who will then drive by, grab some of those beans. Somebody else will come drive by, grab another part of those beans. You're step 1 into the supply chain. No blockchain solves that problem. And so when you actually start to pull apart all of this stuff and start working together as an industry, what you start to figure out is that there's solutions that you have to kind of rethink and think about where the true value can be had versus a good marketing scheme or a good story to be able to tell. And so as we do that, I think this is where we're excited about how we can continue to partner, not just with our customers, not just with the partners in the industry, but also other tech companies as we continue to grow. Thank you.